together with me.
Okay. Gonna get off your phone. So we're admitting the folks who are going to be speaking now. Can you guys hear me? Are they able to start their videos, Prentice? Let me see.
They should have the ability.
Okay, that's good. I see we've got the mayor on, we've got Commander Wallace. Commander, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great. We've got somebody from the IGA's office. Superintendent should be here, Prentice.
I'm looking.
Commander Wallace, are there any more of your people we should elevate now? Everyone's gonna be elevated soon, but we just wanna make sure we've got,
No one that I'm aware of. No.
okay. Mayor, can you hear us?
I believe I found the superintendent. He was under the mayor's name.
Is that the superintendent?
Yes. Superintendent Brown.
Superintendent Brown, can you hear us?
I can hear you now. Yeah, you just let me
Okay.
in.
You're,
I'll rename
Can you
him.
hear me okay?
it says Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Is she gonna join us with you there, or is she gonna be?
She has her own. I'm just going to rename Superintendent Brown.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you have to rename me. Yeah,
Okay,
it's the link that you sent, I think, that did that.
Right.
And let me get the volume up, guys.
yeah, we'll let everybody else in a few minutes. We just wanted to give you guys a chance. Yeah. So Manny's asking to be let in. Let me see if I can find him. I don't see him.
All right.
I'm gonna call him really quick to see what names they're under.
Okay.
You have to rename a number of people now. Everyone's using the same link. Good evening, ma'am. Thank you for joining us. I want to make sure we correct your name because we have you under Mayor Lightfoot's link. Let's change your name real quick.
Yes, please. It's Larita Clark. That's weird.
Yeah, I think we're just passing around the same link. That's what happened.
Okay.
Make sure you spell the name correctly.
Larita
Got it.
Clark.
Got it. Position?
MPEA.
Okay. Okay, I gave you a better name, your own names.
Thank you.
Okay, we have other team members. I would like to rename you before we begin the meeting as well. So can I get clarity about who is who?
Yeah. So there's 4 other mayors on. So if we can just, they should be able to change their own name. If everybody can just put their own name for just clarification under. And will the real Mayor Lori Lightfoot stand up?
Right. When we logged in, we saw that this is being recorded. You need to tell people that it's being recorded.
Yeah, it tells them that automatically. And we don't have to be recorded.
I mean, I don't care one way or the other, but I want to make sure that people understand that it's being recorded.
Yeah, when you log in, it says that now. So
Matt?
then there's 2 more
Yeah,
people
because
under the
link
mayor's
was
name.
just
Can we?
given one time and we shared it. So whoever
Yeah.
else is logged in under my name, please change the name and identify yourself.
Max back.
See you, Matt. Who else from your team? Yes, yes, I got him.
Yeah. All right, we still have 2 Mayor Lightfoots up there. Can you guys change your names or let us change your names if you can tell us who you are?
Yeah,
That would be
Alderwoman King,
helpful.
one of them is me, John O'Malley. I'm trying to change, I just put my hand in there to identify my square.
Okay, appreciate it.
John, just change the name so we know who you are. And who's the other
Got it.
person? Who's the other person that is under my name? Going once?
Is that Manny?
No, Manny's in the room with me.
Okay.
If you don't identify yourself, we're gonna kick you out of the meeting.
Person with their hand up.
Maybe Norm or Ben?
Who?
I don't know, whoever it is, just, Prentice, I assume you have the controls, just kick them out.
Will do.
Got it. Okay, so we've got, about 130 people in the waiting room, and we just wanted to let everybody in first who will introduce, but really, unless the mayor wants to introduce everyone here, and certainly that's up to you, Mayor, I was going to introduce you and the superintendent, and of course, our commander. But however you want to do that.
That's fine.
Okay, because I want to spend more time on the meat of people's questions and things of that nature. So we will allow people to raise their hands and ask questions. And of course, Prentice and I he's in control to mute people. We've never had a disruptive meeting, so I don't anticipate that, but we can mute people if we need to. And that's it. The agenda is really just to go over the statistics, which aren't exactly what we asked for. I will just say that up front. But
we're working on them, but when you ask for 4 years worth of data and the level of particularity 24 hours ahead of time, it was going to take us some time to get everything that you want. We're working on it. We'll get it to you as quickly as we can.
okay. Yeah, I thought it was data just that you had handy. All right, so then we'll get started. We'll we'll let people in and it will.
Sophia, you should also, I'm noticing now that the acting chief administrator of COPA is on the line, as
Yep.
well as Ephraim Eady from COPA, so you should probably introduce them as well.
Okay, so when I introduce you guys, you can just briefly say who you are, and then we'll get started. And then as questions arise, if you feel that you're the appropriate or the most, appropriate person to answer, feel free to jump in and answer those questions. But we really just want to spend the meat of this hearing from people, listening, and hopefully quick answers, not like soliloquies, and then talk about next steps. I'm also going to ask the community for suggestions as well. So hopefully we'll get some good advice. All right.
Alderwoman.
Yes, who's that?
John, this is Sybil. Sorry, I'm in the office with the mayor.
Okay.
John O'Malley, I think, got kicked out. He's trying to get back in.
Yeah, he was the one we kicked out. Does he still have the mayor's? Oh yeah, I see somebody says Mayor Lightfoot, but they have, it looks like the deputy chief. I'll let them in. And Prentice, if you can try and find somebody else with the mayor's tag, let them in. But we're gonna get started. We're already 10 minutes behind, so.
Okay, he'll come in with everybody else then.
Okay. All right. Okay, you guys ready?
Yep.
All right, we'll let everybody in. Yeah, if you've got the mayor's tag, if you can change your name, that would be great. If not, just raise your hand. Prentice can help you with that really quickly. Although I'm sure she would appreciate having 5 other mayors to help out. Okay, we're ready to let folks in? All right, here we go.
Okay, bye.
So, as you guys enter, please mute yourselves. As people are entering, if you can please mute yourselves. Yeah, we're gonna mute all. How about that? There we go. Okay, we're just gonna wait another second for people to enter. If we're hoping that everybody will stay muted until they're called upon. If you give us a second, we're going to get started. I think you're all told that this meeting is being recorded. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Alderman Sophia King. I have the pleasure of being the alderman of the communities that were invited to attend this meeting. I just want to thank you for taking the time out to attend our safety meeting, focusing on the following communities, the Grand Boulevard community. Can you please mute yourself as you come in?
Lock the door.
The Grand Boulevard community, Hyde Park, Kenwood, North Kenwood, and the Oakland communities. We are actually honored to be joined today by the mayor of the city of Chicago, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. I will allow her to say a few words in a second, but just wanted to make note of that. We've obviously been talking about concerns in our community, and she asked to join the community meeting. And of course, we are honored that she's able to join us. Also, we're honored to be joined by Superintendent Brown, who is the superintendent of police. We, of course, have our own district, second district commander here, Commander Wallace. They will introduce themselves shortly, but just want to also acknowledge a couple of other folks who are on as well. We're also being joined by the acting chief of COPA, COPA administration. I'll allow her to say a few words in a moment. And I think we also have a representative from the University of Chicago Police as well. And so let me first do the honor of allowing our illustrious mayor just to say a couple of words. Mayor, are you there?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Alderwoman King, and thank all of you for joining us this afternoon. We know that there are some concerns about safety and policing in your neighborhoods. We've had conversations not only with the Alderwoman, but also with Anita Blanchard, who unfortunately recently had an incident that involved her personally. So we wanted to make sure that we were coming to you to be responsive to the community's needs and concerns. I'm not going to give a long speech because I think the most important thing that we can do today is get to the conversation and answer your questions. But Superintendent Brown is on the line, along with First Deputy Eric Carter and other members of the superintendent's team, because we want to hear from you and the challenges that you're facing. Also, as the Alderwoman said, Commander Wallace, who's the commander of the 2nd District, is also on the line, as well as members of my team. You can't see here in the office, but my Chief of Staff, Sybil Madison, is here. The head of our Intergovernmental Affairs, Andy Perez, is here. And the Director of our Community Engagement, Tina Hone, is also joining us here in my office. And as I said, we know that you've got concerns about what you're seeing on your streets. You have concerns about the response times and other issues regarding the police, and we're here to answer your questions as best as we can. Let me just say this last thing, and then I will turn it over to Superintendent Brown just to put things in context. The last 2 years, 2020, and really through this year, we've seen an unprecedented level of increase in violent crime, not just in Chicago, but across the country. I'm in contact with my fellow mayors on a regular basis, and whether it's New York or LA, Seattle or Washington, DC, Atlanta, Denver, and places that aren't used to seeing surges in violent crime, places like Austin, Texas, all of us are experiencing very similar things. I think there's a reason for that. When you think about the ecosystem of public safety, it's not just law enforcement. It's everything that goes into keeping communities safe. It is the faith community. It's the community-based organizations. Of course, it's other law enforcement actors, the prosecutor, the courts, federal partners, but every single aspect of that ecosystem has been dramatically and negatively impacted by COVID-19, meaning the soft power part of the ecosystem, the community organizations that reach in and support individuals, families, and neighborhoods. Every single part of that ecosystem has been dramatically impacted by COVID, either having people shut down entirely their resources and offerings or pare back substantially. As we sit here now on the cusp of August of 2021, we're still seeing a lot of those resources just start to come online. And that's made a huge difference. And we're seeing a level of intensity of violence in certain communities that we haven't seen in quite a long time. One of the things that we're very concerned about, for example, is, of course, carjackings. I'm happy to report, and we can get into the granularity of that. We saw a spike in carjackings at the end of last year into the first 2 months of this year, but substantial drop in carjackings. From my perspective, part of the reason we started seeing the drop is because we opened our high schools back up and we gave our young people the option to come back to school in person instead of being 100% online. We've also seen a drop because we have substantially devoted additional resources in coordination with our suburban partners. And again, the superintendent can go into some of those details. You've heard me say this, I hope, because I try to say it often. Our biggest challenge in our city around violence is the proliferation of guns. As we sit here today, the Chicago Police Department has already taken over 6,600 illegal guns off the streets of the city of Chicago. We're on pace for another record year. We set the record last year, and just to put it all in context, every year, year after year, the Chicago Police Department takes more crime guns, that's guns that are used illegally, takes more crime guns off the street than New York or LA combined. And it's not because we have a better strategy, although we have a good strategy, and we're very focused on this. It's because we have too many illegal guns coming into our city. The last thing I'll say is, I have to tell you, having a partner in the White House who understands the necessity of acting, like President Biden does, makes a huge difference. I'm not a politician that blows smoke just because, but I can tell you the partnership that we have now with the White House, with the Department of Justice, and our federal partners has been stronger than it has been in years. And we're gonna keep pushing them and hold them accountable, but the interstate trafficking of weapons into our city is a profound problem that we cannot solve at the local level alone. So I'll stop there, but again, looking forward to the conversation. And now I'm gonna turn it over to Superintendent Brown. Superintendent, take it away.
Thanks, Mayor. And Mayor, you hit all the high points I wanted to hit from a context basis across the country. I wanted to get more specific with the second district. In the second district, we are focusing on more visibility, more productivity, to include more foot patrols. We need to hear from the community on where we can be more visible. I've challenged the commander to increase productivity, and we really need to hear a conversation about what that really means. That means more traffic stops in the areas where we are seeing carjackings, where we're seeing violence, and to include more stops of suspicious people. All of this being done constitutionally, but we are looking for guidance from this meeting on the challenge we've already given to the district on more visibility, more productivity, to include foot patrols. I think one of the things we can do more of is more patrols that are data-driven, also based on community input, because sometimes the data doesn't show some of the things that are emerging that the community might see first. The data has a little bit of a lag time, but these types of meetings need to be the new normal. And as soon as we can meet in person, we would love to come out. I've had all of my command staff come out and walk neighborhoods in the last several days. I want to walk any of the neighborhoods here as well, just to show an increased presence, to get me and my command staff in the neighborhoods on foot, interacting with the community, and to challenge us even more from a productivity standpoint, as far as more stops of violent offenders, more arrests of violent offenders. Some of the things that's happened, we do have leads on the carjacking crew that has done some carjackings in the Kenwood neighborhood. Our detectives have leads on. There are likely juveniles, and the juvenile carjacking offender is arrested repeatedly because we, really have a soft spot for juveniles. But regardless of your age, we are going to arrest you if you're going to be carjacking. So we just need to collaborate with you in person as much as we can. And we also need to be much more visible. And that's the challenge to the commander. Commander Wallace is on this call, so he'll take many of the questions, but we've met with Alderwoman King about our productivity increasing, improving, and the challenge we have upon ourselves to do even more, to be even more visible in all of the areas that you all are concerned about, where you drive around and may not see a police officer. That's just not acceptable. That's something we are focused on in the second district and throughout the city. So I don't have much more other than the context of this is a national phenomena. Every city, big and small, is experiencing similar challenges, but we're up for the task. We want to work with you, and we want to be more present, more visible in the areas you need to see us more. Mayor, I'll turn it back over to you, or to you, Alderwoman.
Yeah, thank you, Superintendent. I really want to get to everybody's questions. We're up to about a couple hundred people And so I want to be mindful of people's time, and I want to also use make the best use of their time. So, as I said, I am very grateful to you and the mayor for joining us, for understanding the importance of this meeting. Appreciate that, and hope you will listen and perhaps answer questions as needed. I know Commander Wallace is here. I want to introduce him to everybody first, and then I will have my chief of staff put up some statistics so that people go over or can understand, just in general and in context, what's going on in their communities. But before we do that, I also want to share kind of community areas. As I've said, we've got about 5 community areas that have joined us, Mayor and Superintendent, this evening. And sometimes, they don't actually know what community they live in, and nor do we, expect them to do so. So we just want to, for context, put up our community areas. Then we'll put up our beats. So what I'd like for everybody to do who's online with us is just take note of your community area. We'll leave up the map for a little bit just so you know where you are. And then to take note of your beat so that you can understand where you are. And then towards the end, we'll also introduce some other folks in the community who are directly involved with safety in the community. We've got advisory councils in each of these communities, as well as chairs of the safety committees. And I think they're all on here with us, so we can also put you in touch with people so that folks in the community can get more involved. This is all hands on deck. This is not something that just the police can do alone, or just the mayor can do alone, or just your alderman can do alone, but it takes everybody. And so to that end, we're all here today trying to figure out the best path forward. So with that, I just want everybody to know, most people do know Commander Wallace because he's a very hands-on commander. But Commander Wallace, why don't you just say a couple words, and then we will quickly go to our community maps so people can know where they are, and then to our beat maps so that they can further know what their beats are. And then we'll go to the statistics, because the statistics are by beat, some of them, and so you guys can zero in on your own particular beat. But with no further ado, Commander Wallace.
Thank you, Alderwoman. I'm Commander Wallace, Commander of the 2nd District. I've been here since 2018. I'm very aware of the success that we have had, and I'm very aware of where we're at now. I appreciate this opportunity to be able to speak with everybody, to hear your concerns, and move forward together in coming up with solutions and how we can partner to get where we need to be. One thing I always let everyone know, I have family that live in this district. I have family that live in Alderwoman King's ward. So I take this very personally, and I really want to come up with a solid plan as to where we rebound and we're on top again. So I look forward to this discussion.
Thank you, Commander. All right, so just kind of take note of the community areas that are here today. At the very north, for this meeting tonight, we've got the Grand Boulevard community. Prentice, can you highlight Grand Boulevard? So it's there to the left in gray, kind of Pershing on the north, and 51st Street on the south. So if you're in the Grand Boulevard area, and on the east, Cottage Grove, around Cottage Grove. Then you've got the North Kenwood Oakland community, just a little further north, going up to 31st Street. And then on the south, 47th. Again, it goes over a little bit to Vincennes. Now you got to go a little, higher. Thank you, Prentice. And then eastern boundary on the lake. Then you've got the Kenwood community, which is 47th Street on the north, 51st Street on the south, the lake on the east, and Cottage on the west, and then Hyde Park, which is 51st on the north, mostly 53rd on the south, Lake Park, mostly on the east, and on the west, Woodlawn. It dips down a little bit to the south to take in Nichols Park, and also goes a little further east. But I think most people are here kind of know their boundaries. So you can kind of get the community areas you're in. And now, Prentice, you have the beats as well. Great. And so as you can see, the Fourth Ward beats that we're dealing with are kind of in, let's just say, a peach color. If you can just kind of note what beat you're in, you've got 211 on the top, 212. Prentice, if you can make it just a little larger, that would be great, because we don't go as far south. And then 214. Yeah, that's good. Beat 221, 222, and 223. Hyde Park dips into 234 as well. But just take note of your beats, because some of the statistics we're about to show are beat sensitive as well. Okay. I think that's good. All right, so then let's get to the statistics, and then Commander, if you can just go over those briefly, that would be great. Prentice.
So Alderwoman King, can I just interject for 10 seconds?
Sure.
I just want people to know that we are following along real time in the chat, and certainly appreciate the feedback that's already been given. And there will be things that hopefully we'll get an opportunity to address. So we'll take note of the chat. The chat will be saved. So if we don't get to your question, please feel free to put something in the chat and we'll follow up with you.
Yeah, we certainly will. And just to set expectations, we're going to, have people raise hands by the raise hand function. We will do that for a good period of time so that we can get real-time questions and answers to you. And then we'll go to the chat and to the questions that were admitted before this meeting in the registration, to the extent that they're not answered live, because we find that most of the questions are answered live. And then we'll obviously go to the chat. All right, so Prentice, can you put up the stats that have been prepared for us? Thank you. Commander, do you want to take the liberty of just going over them?
I can go over the second district stats. So year to date, something to keep in context, the second district was ground zero for vehicular hijackings when the first of the year started. So beat 222 took the brunt of it. And that's where we were dug into a hole, and then we created the area carjacking task force, which helped us out tremendously. So we were in the hole pretty early when it came to carjacking. So year to date, we're at 70. That's up 165% from 2020. So from this 26 we had last year. So we have a possession of stolen motor vehicles here, 303 compared to 229 the year previously. And criminal trespass the vehicle is also included in those counts. One thing to understand, that is a charge. So possession of stolen motor vehicle and criminal trespass the vehicle are charges. And I believe motor vehicle theft was also included in that number as well. When we talk about motor vehicle thefts in the second district, we are slightly up as well. We were trending down, but we've had a huge increase in Uber and Lyft vehicles stolen while they were making deliveries. And we've also had a spike in people leaving their cars because there's a big misconception that taking your key fob with you while your vehicle's running protects your vehicle from being driven off. We've seen a huge increase with those type of motor vehicle thefts. In regards to murders, we currently stand at 26. We're up 16 from the previous. 7 of those homicides or murders have been cleared by arrest, and 2 of those murders, which are included in here, were stabbings. So I do see numbers on there in regards to aggravated batteries. Those numbers are actually 61 for the year to date and 51 for 2020. We are currently up in those numbers as well. That's aggravated battery with a firearm. Aggravated batteries overall in general, which can include protected employees or using some other type of instrument, such as a hammer, a brick or whatnot. We are currently down from the previous year of 2020. We're at 126 this year, down 172 from the prior year. Overall crime for the 2nd District is slightly up, 685 violent crime incidents compared to 579 in the year 2020. And rounding it out, we have armed robbery. We are currently at 134 incidents, up from 77. One thing to take note, while our vehicular hijackings were occurring, we also were having a spike in our armed robberies, and it's attributed to these crews of juveniles committing these carjackings and then going a couple blocks over and then committing armed robberies. So we were able to tie a lot of those crews into multiple crimes.
Commander, this is Mayor Lightfoot. I wonder if you could provide the ladies and gentlemen that are on the call with any trends, particularly around vehicle hijackings. Overall, in the city, we saw a pretty significant spike, as I said, at the end of last year going into the beginning of this year. But we've seen citywide, at least, a pretty significant downward trend based upon more resources, more coordination with our suburban partners. And I also wonder if you could speak to the arrest in the 2nd District around vehicle hijackings. So trends and arrest.
Yes, Mayor. The trends that we saw were just like across the same trends we were seeing across the city. Juvenile crews, we saw the spike in January, and we have since seen a decrease. We've actually down 25% for the last 28 days. And we're actually up, I believe we are up in arrests for vehicular hijackings as well from this time last year. It's the same juvenile crews, and it was all done via social media. Our true partners in this, as you said, the Area Vehicular Hijacking Task Force has been phenomenal in regards to how we recover these vehicles and work with the detectives to get them the evidence that they need to prosecute these crews, because it's all tied in together, whether the crew is from the west side or the south side. For whatever reason, I believe the 2nd District is a true target because it's so close to Lakeshore Drive, and you can make your way north or south very easily. But we are definitely seeing a downward trend, which is very pleasing to see at this point.
Can you, I also noticed, and I said beforehand, but I think you guys have the stats ready, that we've got the vehicular jackings, but we don't have the attempted ones, which, were obviously among the couple highlighted things that have happened in the 2nd District. So how many do we have year to date in 2020 and 2019?
I have not been provided that information because I know that's a true data dig based on the UCR that is categorized under. I will get you that information as soon as possible.
Okay. All right. So why don't we get to questions? I know there's also data by beats. If you guys just look before you take this down, Prentice, just the top 5 beats in each of these categories, but I also think you could probably snap a picture of it. We'll also put a recording up on our website just in case you want to come back to this. But just take note.
Alderwoman, this is the superintendent. Can I say a
Yes.
couple of more things about the carjacking? So
Sure.
we've done some deployments that's sending officers to areas based on data, which includes carjackings. And I just want the commander to address, where are we doing foot patrols as it relates to carjackings recently in Kenwood, how that's working out, and where do we plan on deploying more officers as it relates to all of the violent crime that we just talked about. You just kind of give the deployments, Josh, so the community members can hear what we're doing.
All right. So we base our deployments based on our current crime trends. So we have, of course, areas that's peaked more than others. What our strategy is to deploy our available resources to that area, and there's mandatory foot patrol for all officers assigned to those areas. I've even mandated all my supervisors, including my lieutenants who run the watches, to also be out there and do foot patrol with their officers. It needs to be an all hands on deck approach. I'm out there, my captain's out there. We all do foot patrol together with the officers because it's important for the community to see us. So we have 3 different deployment boxes across the district that basically range from the north end of the district to the south end of the district. We do know there's been a definitely.
So Commander, can I jump in for a second?
Yes.
For those who may not be familiar with law enforcement lingo, it might be helpful for you to explain what you mean by deployment boxes.
So we determine, we can say anywhere between a 4-block radius in which we determine that the crime is, the most violent or the area that needs the most attention. So we've identified boxes, 4x4 block boxes across the districts, 3 different boxes where we deploy a concerted effort of resources to tackle the biggest problems in those particular areas. Now, I know on B234, which is mainly Hyde Park, we've also instituted, again, high visibility foot patrol on 53rd Street and on Hyde Park. And we're working in conjunction with the University of Chicago Police Department as well to continue to do things together to address not only the increase in armed robberies over there, but also to do a community engagement piece with the returning students and the faculty, because they tend to be the overall victims of a lot of the armed robberies that occur in that particular area. Now, B222 is where we saw the biggest increase in vehicular hijackings and as well as robberies. So we've continued to do what's called license plate reader missions as well as traffic missions. But the biggest thing is being out and being visible on these blocks, because we started to see a pattern that particular blocks were being targeted on B222. So also in regards to foot patrol, we also have our community policing team out there. They flyer as well after every single vehicular hijacking on the block, because a lot of it comes down to bringing awareness to the community, letting them know that we're aware of their concerns and wanting to make them feel safe, and letting them know what we can do to be more vigilant, and how to reach us and if they have any other questions. So that's kind of the overall approach we're taking to whether it be homicides, vehicular hijacking, armed robberies. It's a visibility issue, and it's something we're definitely ramping up on.
And Alderwoman, I'm reading the chat. I think there's some areas where the community doesn't see officers at all, and they say they haven't seen officers. Oftentimes we need input from the community to further direct where we walk, where we're more present, that may not show up in the data. So Josh, you have to connect from the chat locations and I would encourage you to keep putting locations in the chat where you want to see more presence, and so that we can, be more accountable and challenge the officers to be in all of the areas the community is seeing as areas of concern. And then I'm hearing questions about narcotics activity as well, Josh. Can you talk about that briefly if we have time?
Yeah, no, Superintendent, let's get to some live questions so that we can.
These were all in the chat.
Yeah, there's a lot in the chat, but can you all, Prince, can you take that down? And then we're going to use the raise your hand function. Nope, we don't want anyone, just kind of blurting out. There's, over 200 people on this call, so we want to make sure we do this in an orderly fashion. If you'd like to ask a question live, even if it's been in the chat, please raise your hand, and then the appropriate people will try to answer it live, or we will definitely get back to you. We also look forward to recommendations as well. And so between your questions and recommendations, I think those would be accepted. So as you raise your hand, we're going to go in order of people raising their hand. And so we'll take the first person. We're going to ask for everybody to show your video. So, get decent, just for transparency and to make sure. I recognize a lot of the community members' names, but we'll start with Mr. Chappelle.
Good afternoon, Alderman King, and I appreciate all the political figures joining this town hall today. I just have a kind of a general question, and that pertains to the recent crime that occurred on 53rd Street, where Mr. Keith Cooper lost his life. And I want to preface this on saying that I'm a long-term Chicago resident, and what disturbed me about that incident was the brazenness of it at 12:30 in the afternoon in a plaza that is typically has walking security. So what does that say about the individuals that are perpetrating this crime? Is it saying that they perceive the community not to be well policed? Yeah, but that's what kind of disturbed me about that incident.
Yeah, I'm sure a couple of folks will want to take a stab at that. What I will say is that I know Mr. Newsom is on the call. I know that they've increased their security at that location. I know that the second district has also increased their surveillance of that area. But I'll let the commander, the superintendent, answer that question.
Commander, do you want to start? And then I'm sure the super will have some follow up.
Sure, I'll start. So I will say yes. It's the brazenness. We've experienced quite a few brazen crimes within the second district. However, a lot of these crimes are crimes of opportunity. Being able to set up and do counter surveillance on the police and do counter surveillance on the security. So as soon as maybe security walks into an establishment and disappears, as soon as that beat car drives off, okay, now's our opportunity. The one thing that's outstanding is the fact that officers were on scene immediately in conjunction with the University of Chicago. We took the offenders into custody, immediately ID'd on scene with fantastic witnesses. And the one thing, at least his family will get justice. It's an unfortunate incident, but we were there on time. Unfortunately, we weren't there in the nick of time.
And I'll just add this as it relates to the brazenness. This brazenness is not only toward victims, it's toward police officers as well. We're seeing unprecedented brazenness across the city as it relates to violent offenders attacking victims and really attacking cops. We're repeatedly talking about how many cops have been shot at or shot by these suspects who have no regard for victims and or police officers. And we run toward danger to arrest these offenders. And the mayor mentioned 6,600 guns. That's a midweek number. We crossed 7,000 guns recovered today. And we're just still in July. So we've been repeatedly saying 12,000 guns which would be historically high for Chicago, but we may surpass 14,000 guns recovered in this city this year, which is extraordinary. But it speaks to the brazenness. Everyone's carrying a gun. Offenders are brazen in the daylight, at night, and regardless of whether police officers are nearby are confronting them, they will shoot at police officers just as much as they will shoot at any of the victims that we are seeing tragically, victims of violent offenders. But we're determined and committed to have more presence, more stops of these suspects, to set a better tone as far as our obligation to the community for visibility in areas that you are bringing up to us. We want to walk the neighborhoods in Kenwood much more than we have, as well as patrol. And Mayor, I'll turn it over to you as well.
Yeah, let me just add a comment that I think really relates to a lot of the things that we're seeing in the chat and the questions that have been previously submitted. As the superintendent said, we're seeing an unprecedented level of brazenness. You know, I'm a former federal prosecutor. I've worked for the police department. I've been a defense attorney. I've not seen anything like this in my over 30 plus years of living in Chicago. And I started my life in Chicago on the South Side in Hyde Park. It's extraordinary. And yes, the offenders are younger and younger. And the biggest difference is the guns. And as the superintendent alluded to, we're very concerned about these young kids playing out some fantasy of being a tough guy, getting into a beef, joining a gang, whatever it is, and playing it out with firearms, not fully appreciating what they're doing, in part because we're seeing more and more of these young people and young men who have no sense of the sanctity of life. This isn't a video game. This is real life. When you shoot and spray in a crowd, you're going to take people that weren't the target, maybe that you were aiming for. And we're seeing, unfortunately, more and more of that across the city. How do we address that? I think we got to address it in a number of different ways. But part of it is, and one reason why we put out a $1 million reward fund for information leading to the seizure of firearms, is we need your help. There is no way that we can police our way out of this problem. But we want to be ineffective at that if people in neighborhoods know who the people are that are wreaking havoc and are silent. In this climate that we're in, silence is complicity. We have to be partners in solving these challenges together. There's been a question permeating through the chat and the live questions about some of these juveniles that are involved in carjacking. We're seeing young people that have no history of involvement with the criminal justice system. It's not chop shops. It's not that there's suddenly a market. It's brazenness. It's boredom. It's the thrill. I hate to say that because I asked exactly the same questions you were asking when we started to see this uptick. And I'm going to say this for the Black folks who are on the line. We have to do a better job of loving and supporting, but also holding our children accountable. It's not somebody else's problem. It's our problem. We have to think about how we can do a better job. Because these young boys, and most of them are young men, some girls though, I'm not going to take them off the hook. They seem to think that their destiny is to be a gangster in whatever way that manifests itself for them. So we've got to do a better job, which is why we put out 200,000 activities for young people over the course of this summer, 23,000 jobs. But we've got to reach those kids who aren't being reached yet. We're committed to that. We're doing and working on that at the city level, but we can't do this by ourselves. We have to have your help and support. And as my mother used to say, I love you and you're mine, but when you're wrong, you're wrong. And why I raise that is when our children cross the line and pick up a gun and shoot someone and God forbid kill them or threaten someone to take their car or their wallet, we've got to hold them accountable as a community. And that doesn't mean locking them up and throwing away the key, but there's got to be some moral consequences and responsibility for the things that we're seeing, or otherwise it's Lord of the Flies all over the city. So I'll stop there. The Alderwoman warned me about soliloquies, but I just felt like I needed to speak to the issues that are permeating, I think, a lot of the comments in the chat.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I do want to get to the questions, but thank you, Mayor. Okay, next we have Teresa Mason. If you can just start your video and ask your question.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you see me okay?
Yes, good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Yes, I had sent in a letter not too long ago in regards to Ellis Park. It just seemed as though since the summer, there's just a group or a gang of people, and the ringleader doesn't even, I have the nerve to actually walk up to him. I was walking my dog and have a conversation with him. Doesn't even live in the area. None of them do. But because it's a great big open park where they barbecue, gamble, drink, leave open liquor bottles, have parties, blaring music throughout the night. It got so bad that I had to put my phone on speaker to let the police know, so that the police could hear the music himself, so he could believe me to send somebody out there. They very rarely come, except for that one time that I counted for. And now that area, 37th and Langley, Ellis Park, is marked as a drug and gang territory. And by that, because when you gym shoes that are thrown up on the power line, it indicates that it's now a marked drug gang area. I would love to see, because signs don't do it. They don't leave at 9 o'clock. They don't leave at 9 o'clock. They stay all night, and we're talking to maybe 3 and 4 in the morning. And maybe 5, 6.
So ma'am, what I will say is, Commander obviously is on, we need to pay special attention to that. But we'll also flag this for the Park District for them to make sure that they are focused on that area. I mean, my notes are a general degradation of the quality of life is what I'm hearing you describe. So we've got to be.
Absolutely, and trash everywhere.
Oh my God. So we will be on that. We will make sure that the Park District does a better job of enforcing the rules and being present so that you're not disturbed till all hours of the day and night with people deciding that this is their place and without regard for the neighbors. So we'll be on that.
So to see more foot patrol or dedicated police, so that baby kids, as I call them, well, yeah, they're actually grown adults, can see that the community of Oakwood Shores, that we're not playing and we take our area seriously. Because if it gets to the point where I've got to go,
we'll be on it. We'll be on it.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Ms. Mason. Manson, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay, Mr. Orr.
Good afternoon or early evening, everyone. My name is Desmond Orr. I'm a longtime resident of the Grand Boulevards. I spent 5 years as the beat facilitator for beats 212 and 214. I'm currently not in that role, but I'm a 214 resident. To kind of follow up with what she's saying about the parks. Parks are a big deal. You get a lot of negative loitering. What we had, the way Oakwood Boulevard, which is where I live, dealt with Mandrake Parks and its negative loitering was to have positive loitering. We got the Mandrake Park Advisory Council got very active, put more activities in the park, bringing better quality activities to the park, and partnering with the Chicago Police Department. They did a great job of giving us patrol cars to come and sit at that park, and it changed. It changed the landscape of the park. Now, I've recently run into problems with not Langley, but Vincennes, especially between Oakwood and Pershing. There's a group of people literally every day that will go, and no matter how many times I speak with them not to do it, they will show up to drink, block sidewalks, to cause problems. I don't believe them to be violent offenders. I don't believe them to put people's lives necessarily at risk today. But the negative attention brings on more negative activities.
So, Mr. Orr, can you give us those coordinates again?
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for asking, Madam Mayor. It's Vincennes, east side of the street between Oakwood and Pershing. And it's a group of 10 people. It started with 2 or 3. Now it keeps ballooning. And I literally drive by there every day and say, hey, you got to stop. And they're like, hey, this is all I know. I'm like, no, you don't. You know more, but you got to stop. And so if we can get someone to drive by, and I would guess right now there are people there. So thank you guys for listening. I appreciate the attention that you give to these things. Hats off to the Chicago Police Department for the work they've done. And I look forward to us, answering and addressing these issues as they come up. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Mr. Orr. Appreciate you. Ms. Ermer.
Hey, everybody. Thanks so much for putting this together and for the attendance of all of these very high stakes, high profile attendees and your time in dedication to this. I'm wearing a lot of hats here, but I think the main question that I had, and I'm curious if you can speak to, if the folks attending can speak to this, what are some of the solutions that are currently being worked on that don't center fully around more police or more policing? And I'm thinking more along the lines of infrastructure assets like speed bumps in high traffic areas, more blue light cameras, an ambassador program similar to the young folks that I would see walking the bike paths at reminding people to wear masks at the height of the pandemic, or community purchasing programs that might help CACs, CDCs pool resources with the city to install cameras, because I know there's a lot of need and there's limited budgets. Just curious about those solutions.
So thanks for your question, Adrian. What I would say is some of the things that Mr. Orr talked about are really the things that make the difference. Having community members get directly involved. We're going to be rolling out something relatively soon to really, I think, put greater emphasis on block clubs. We've seen that really work, where block clubs are active, neighbors taking ownership of their blocks, their community, makes a huge difference. I took a note about the park advisory groups, people who really care about a particular park, being active and engaged and making sure that they have resources to be able to put on programming. I think that's incredibly important. And I think your point is well taken. This can't not be a police only, police first and only solution. It's got to come with what I call the soft power. And that really emanates from the neighborhood. So, again, we're taking notes, we're looking at things in the chat, but anything we can do to help empower community members to take back control of the geography is really what we have to be about. But again, it starts to me with making sure that we're providing positive supports to these young people to steer them into more productive activities. I was down in the far south side today, 95th Street and Auburn Gresham, and the South Shore Drill Club was there. Those kinds of activities where young people are part of a team, they're making sacrifices, and they see a greater purpose for their lives. Where we see the challenges is these kids who are just hanging out and don't have positive influences in their life or activities that they can participate in. So it's both a short-term and a long-term play. The long-term is we got to keep funneling resources into communities. We got to build up opportunities for adults and young people. The shorter-term play is we got to get communities active and engaged and really staking a ground to say, no, this park is actually ours and we're going to take control of it. This block is actually ours. And then giving us the feedback, as you've heard the alderman say, and the commander, tell us where you see the trouble spots and make sure that we've got resources there, both in terms of police for sure, but street outreach, activating the faith community and other community organizations around this idea, the larger concept of public safety.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ermer. Ms. Finney Cook.
Good evening, and thank you, Alderman, Mayor, and the rest of the city's team for being here today. I live in, I guess, Beat 222. I think I'm saying that properly, in Kenwood. And again, I appreciate the idea of trying to dissuade sort of our young people. We actually had in February, my 13-year-old daughter witnessed a carjacking out in front of our house. It was in broad daylight about 5 o'clock. And so the question I have is, in addition to the programs that I'm hearing consistently being talked about and potentially speed bumps and things of that nature, one of the key things that the officers, when they did arrive, shared with us, and we could see this, is that these are juveniles. And so what, for those young adults that don't have the parental supervision to kind of get them or funnel them into the programs, what are we doing that will be effective immediately to de-incentivize them from coming out, swinging with guns, pulling people out? In this case, it was a situation where the young man, our neighbor's caregiver, was in the car, and they literally pulled him out, kind of beat him up, and 5 young men drove into the car, and the other one followed them. And so again, wasn't, we had the cameras, but again, for each home, they only go so far. And so again, my biggest question is, what are we doing immediately, or what is your plan to do immediately to de-incentivize these young adults who are juveniles, so they know that the law can only go so far with them, but there's got to be some sort of something to fill in the gap here, because they're continuing and it's rising.
I will start and then I'll kick it to the superintendent. And those of you who know me know that I'm very, very candid, and I don't mince words, whether I'm in a public forum or otherwise. I think there are 2 immediate things that absolutely have to happen. Our police officers are rearresting young people who are carjacking, and they're rearresting them because they're not being held accountable in the juvenile court system. We have solved a number of outstanding carjacking cases with young people who have 4 and 5 and 6 cases pending, but are out because they're juveniles. And again, I don't think we ought to be locking up juveniles, but your point is well taken, which is, if they, in their young, immature way, do not feel that they are accountable for their actions, what are we teaching them? I'm struck, I have a 13-year-old as well, and I can only imagine how traumatized your daughter must have been seeing that and experiencing it real time. But if we don't teach our children accountability, then they're going to continue to do the things that they're doing on impulse. And a lot of this is impulse. I said this before. A lot of these kids have no history until this latest wave started. But the criminal courts, juvenile and adult courts, have effectively been closed for 16 months, and we're not adjudicating these cases and moving them through the system. If they were moved through the system out of pretrial into some kind of resolution, they would get some services and intervention. But as it stands right now, pretrial, out on pretrial release, we're seeing this recurring problem. So I'm like a broken record on this, and I've said this privately to Chief Judge Evans, and many of you know, former alderman in your area. Open up the criminal courts, move these cases through. Let's have some little level of accountability, not lock up and throw away the key. I do not believe in that. But if there's no consequences for action, right? You miss school, you get a detention. You fail to turn in your homework, you get a bad mark. When you're sticking up people with a gun, there's got to be some accountability. And it can't just be you got processed and your parents come pick you up at the station. So that's a significant challenge that we're facing right now, is the lack of accountability, because the criminal courts have effectively been closed for trials, still not open. I don't understand it. The whole city's open. The judges need to get back to work. They need to do their job. They need to adjudicate these cases. But I also think we've got to think of creative ways that we can engage these young people. And the one power I have was to make sure that our high schools are open. A lot of these young people that we were seeing over the course of this year, before we opened up our high school, were students with no track record of problems, but they had a bunch of free time and they weren't connected on the remote learning. So we started to see a drop in carjackings when we opened up our high school. So the one thing I can tell you that I'm committed to, we're going back full-time, 5 days a week. And there's been a tremendous amount of work over the course of the summer to reach out to those young people who are disconnected, but there's still more work that we need to do. But, you know, we all know this, idle hands are the devil's workshop. And we've got to get these young people connected up to positive activities. And when they step over the line, there's got to be a measure, an appropriate measure, not throw away the key, but an appropriate measure of accountability.
And I'll just jump in as well, Mayor, just to mention, we have this program called Custom Notifications. That's where the officer goes out and knocks on the door of the offender or person who we think might have a high case of being recruited to do carjackings in our gang activity. And we offer the whole family wraparound social services. We bring in social service representatives that are specific to the area to help with this conversation with the young person, the parents, and or whoever the caregivers are, and to include offering services to the family as a whole, not just to the offender. Now, many times the young person wants no parts of it, but often we're finding that the family members do, particularly the mothers, want to have some type of social service that we will then offer through those representatives that are there with us knocking on the door. Now, our capacity to do this is limited, but we're 700% above what we were doing just last year in custom notifications, particularly focused on young people and young people who are repeatedly carjacking. We're going knocking on the doors and offering these services. And this is outside the purview of what the courts are doing because they're not in full force open. So we just taken it upon ourselves to fill in the gap and really focus on our young people. And if any of you want to help in that dynamic, we'd be glad to bring on more people who have connections to nonprofits or other philanthropic organizations that can help offer social services to our young people who are in this life.
Thank you, Superintendent. Ms. Dinkins-Carr?
Good afternoon, everyone. Oh, let me change my background. Thank you for joining us today. I've been listening to all the questions and comments. I'm involved in several community organizations from South Shore to Inglewood. And you say get the kids involved. You only gotta get certain kids involved. They come and then they just taper off. I sit on the board of the Black United Front of Illinois, where we had a carpentry program for them. Most of the kids, even young adults, only had a 4th grade reading level. So then we had to convert that program into adult reading or try to partner with the city colleges. So I sit on the advisory board of the Salvation Army and the Red Shield Center in Inglewood. We've had cooking programs, basketball programs there, various programs. Some help the youth, some don't. So I hear you when you say we need more programming for the young adults and youth, but also we need a curfew. I was born and raised in Chicago. The curfew was 10:30 during the week, 11:30 on the weekend. We need a curfew. Also, I have another question. We don't see a police presence in Kenwood. I live on 49th and Greenwood. If I put any more lights on my house or cameras, I might get fined because I'm lighting up during Christmas. I have the brightest house on the block. But I would like to know, why does it take 30 minutes for the Chicago Police Department to come after we call 911, either on a carjacking or suspicious people in the neighborhood. We don't see the University of Chicago Police in our neighborhood anymore. We don't see the Chicago Police. Before, they used to park on the corners early morning, early afternoon, late evening, and I'm a late person. I go to sleep at 2 or 3 in the morning. I haven't seen that in the past 2 years.
So,
Now,
if I can jump in, because I want to make sure that we answer all your questions, and they're stacking up. If I could jump in and let me take the last question first, and that's presence. I really, Commander, hopefully you're taking note. That is a consistent theme through the chat, which is presence. Why aren't we seeing this? We have the second largest police force in the country. This isn't like LA, where LA has such a huge landmass, less police officers than we do, and you can go miles and miles in LA and never see a police car. That should never be a thing in Chicago, never. So, Commander, please take note. A lot of folks are saying, hey, we're your guys. We don't see cars. We don't see patrols. We're not seeing a presence in the neighborhoods. We got to get on that and get on that right away, because that should not be a thing. I will say this also, and maybe the commander or the superintendent can address this. I think we have to do a better job of coordinating with the University of Chicago Police. The University of Chicago Police is the third largest police force, third or fourth largest police force in the state. I know this again from my time there, and there are more USC police officers than there were when I was back in Hyde Park in the late 80s. So we've got to make sure that there is no part of the footprint of your communities that isn't covered regularly by patrol, whether it's CPD or the University of Chicago Police Department. Let me also just say this about your point about the young people. Look, this work is hard. I'm not saying it's easy. We are spending unprecedented levels of resources in the tens of millions of dollars reaching out to help our youth. And then you combine that with CPS and that number goes up exponentially. But we know that there's a lot of work to do, because unfortunately, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of stress, depression. Too many of our young people feel hopeless and disconnected. Again, why we put a huge emphasis on building up a network of community-based mental health providers, so that our young people and others can feel connected somewhere. But we've got to do more. But I would say to you, first of all, God bless you for the work that you've done, but don't give up on our kids. We can't give up on them. Even if one comes, that's one that's taken off the street, that's learned something, a valuable school, a skill. And importantly, when you open up your doors and your heart to these young people, they feel loved. And they may not be feeling that anyplace else in their life. It does make a difference. I know it's hard, at times it's discouraging, but please don't give up.
I have one more question. Thank you, Mayor. And this is for the police. What is a normal time for a police officer to show up once a 911 call is phoned in? Because sometimes we don't see them for 30 minutes. Or sometimes we don't even see them come at all. And we have a lot of crime and carjacking in Kenwood. And I call the University of Chicago Police first, and then I call 911, because the University of Chicago Police will show up first, but then they say, have you called the Chicago Police? And we say yes. And they might show up 30 minutes later.
Commander?
Yes. So it all depends. It all depends on the nature of the call. You know, there are priorities to calls, but to bounce off the mayor's point, absolutely. There should be no reason you don't see the police as often. There should be no reason a police officer doesn't show up in a timely manner for the call that you make. You know, but also understand, you know, it also depends on the priority of the call. But regardless, when you call, your call is
Hey, Josh,
important.
can you talk a little bit about a high priority call versus a lower priority call and what the differences are? And then what happens on like a really busy Friday and Saturday night for any and all calls with the wraps that happen occasionally?
So wraps do happen. Those are radio assignments pending, and quite often on the busier days of the week, such as Fridays and Saturdays, calls tend to back up based on priority. So you may have your low-level disturbances, music, maybe people drinking on the sidewalk. Those calls fall down lower on the priority, whereas the in-progress calls, shots fired, person shot calls take the top priority on any given day. So depending on the current state of the district and whether or not the district is in a what we call radio assignment pending status, that all plays into how fast the police do respond to the call. But the calls do get answered.
So,
30 minutes, I mean, I sit there and time them, and I'm very detailed. Oh, I see some suspicious guys hanging on the corner, or I see someone that might be a victim, and I call and they take the information. At one time, a squad car was always somewhere in Kenwood.
I think, Ms. Dinkins, that's where we can improve. The presence alone will increase the response times because we'll already be in the neighborhood. When we're not in the neighborhood, it just takes longer to get there. So we've challenged Second District to be present in the areas where we are hearing this evening and what we've heard in the past where you don't see us. So that's one step we have to take. In addition, I think foot patrols, and I think I've heard bike patrols as well need to be included so that we can be closer when you need us instead of coming from some location that's not in the neighborhood. So that's on our list. We have to do that immediately. And we focused on challenging our officers to do that in the Kenwood neighborhood.
Thank you.
Superintendent and Commander, I think we also have to talk about resources too, if we're going to be honest here. So, you know, how many officers are on a beat and how we would love to have folks on foot patrol as well as bikes. But can you speak to how many officers are on a beat typically?
So the Second District has 272 officers.
Okay. And how many are on a particular beat at any given time?
It depends on where it is. Let's just talk how many are on the beats that you've given the geography for Kenwood or for your ward, and just Josh, just go through it real quick. But there's 272
we've got 5
officers.
communities. So it's Hyde Park you could start with, and then Kenwood, and then Grand Boulevard, North Kenwood, and Oakland.
So
Commander, I think we're waiting on you.
okay.
Yep.
So the Second District is comprised of 15 beats.
Yep.
So in those 6 of those beats are included here. So every day they're depending on what watch it is. So if it's second watch, there could be a one person. The beat car could be on its beat with 1 officer, or it could be 2 officers, and that pretty much goes.
So I just want to stop right there. With 1 or 2 officers on a beat, how do you have somebody on a bike and on foot patrol? Those are some things that, you know, I'd like to get to, because, you know, I just want to make sure that, you know, we are talking about what's really happening. And it's hard when beats are big. I get it. So, you know, resources, and I know Superintendent, we talked about adding resources, but, you know, I just want to be frank about where we are in terms of resources.
And Commander, can I just again ask, rather than use the police jargon, please explain for folks, when you say second watch, what hours you're talking about, if you're gonna talk about third watch, just so everybody is on the same page. Go ahead.
So our first watch typically is 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. in the morning. Our second watch is typically 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And then we'll have our third watch, our afternoon watch, which is typically 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. at night. So all those beats may or may not be manned by one officer or two officers for all 15 beats that the second district is compiled. So we also have cars, one car assigned to our 35th Street, 47th Street, and 51st Street business corridors. So those cars could be manned by one officer or by two officers on a daily basis, all depending on.
Then add your attack teams and then how your attack teams are assigned to areas. I think Alderwoman is trying to describe the beats, but the district is made up of several different groups, work groups that are dedicated to have more flexibility than the beat officers. The beat officers are dedicated to the beats for the most part, but you have what's called TAC teams that are flexible to move throughout the district to do some of the things we're talking about doing as far as foot
Sure.
patrols are concerned.
How many TAC teams do we have, Commander?
Currently have 2 TAC teams.
He's approved
So
to have 5. And
Okay.
so we're challenging him to fill those TAC teams up, and we're struggling to fill them for some reason where other districts are filling their TAC teams. So that's one challenge that we have to meet right away. The new
Yeah.
captain has added to those TAC teams, but second district's approved to have 5 TAC teams, and they've only been able to fill 2. And that's the flexibility that we should have for the things that we're hearing on this meeting and that we've heard before regarding more presence.
Yeah, no, I just want to, have just a good understanding of where we are, and with 15 beats, with 1 or 2 officers on a beat that, go from Lakeshore Drive to the Dan Ryan, it's, a lot of land to cover,
just
but I
finished
appreciate I do
we just-
appreciate the increased amount of resources in
We
order
just
to do
finished the
that.
conversation about TAC teams, because I want to make sure people have a full understanding of all the resources that are available across the second district that are obviously the B cars, and then there's other layers of resources that are present in the second district. So Commander, can you finish what you started?
Yeah, Josh
Well-
finished TAC teams and then finished headquarters, training academy, and detectives that we all assigned to various districts based on your request.
So I can definitely speak to TAC teams. I was the tactical lieutenant in the second district. And when we had 4 TAC teams, we were extremely successful because they're the utility players. They're the ones who do the things that we need to get done while the B cars answer calls. So unfortunately right now, yes, I'm down to 2 TAC teams. We're working on filling them and getting them back to full strength so we can provide even better service in regards to those quality of life issues. I received outside resources from our deployments from public safety headquarters, from the detective division, and from the training academy. We determine locations in which we need them to be deployed, where they be of most benefit to us, and they're deployed to me on a weekly basis at my request.
Okay, let's get to some other questions. Thank you, Commander. Ms. Britt Hart.
Thank you, Sophia, or Alderman King. Thank you, Mayor Lightfoot, Superintendent Brown, Commander Wallace, and Alderman King for being here this afternoon. We've covered a lot today, and we've talked about some long-term solutions like possibly more cameras in the neighborhood, speed bumps, more cooperation with the beat teams. I also am in the 4th Ward. I'm at 49th and Woodlawn. And like Kristen, I unfortunately came face to face with a carjacking right behind my garage where I park, and I had my children in the car. I am the person who actually called the police for the gentleman who they did successfully get his vehicle. So it was an elderly gentleman, and I did call both University of Chicago and Chicago police in that incident. And now that has hit so close to home, including the recent attempt with Anita, I would like to know what the immediate action is and what things we can do right away, because obviously we aren't going to get cameras tomorrow in the neighborhood. We aren't going to get speed bumps immediately. What can we do in cooperation with the police, fully recognizing that you guys are overworked and understaffed? But we are here like everyone else around the city with our children and just trying to all be safe and not be prisoners in our homes.
Sue, you want to start and then I'll back clean up here?
Yeah, one of the things we try to consistently say we're wanting to do is hear from you about these experiences. We have the data, and I know the CAPS and Commander Wallace is on the ground listening to you all the time, but we really want to focus on being more visible. I think that's the immediate thing we can do. The commander can fill up his TAC teams that we just talked about, because that's the flexibility of officers to be in an area like Kenwood in your neighborhood to provide that visibility. That's an immediate thing we can do to increase presence and your perception of safety and your realities of safety. That's got to be done now. And we have the ability to do that. There's extra resources available. We can send them to your neighborhood, and we just got to ensure we are challenging the commander and all of his direct reports to make that happen now. I directed immediately the foot patrols. We just need to see and hear from you. Are you seeing foot patrol? If you're not, then why are we not seeing foot patrols when we have the officers to do it? So that's the immediate thing. The presence, and again, the traffic stops. If offenders driving through the neighborhood looking for somewhere in the carjack believe they might get stopped by police because we're doing a lot of traffic stops, that discourages and prevents crime. When we're not doing traffic stops, offenders feel free to be brazen as if they're not going to be stopped. So the presence, the visibility now is the immediate thing we can do.
And let me also just, go ahead, I'm sorry, Dr.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, and I prefer you, Mayor Lightfoot, to go on with your point. I had a question specifically for either the commander or superintendent just about how many officers we have in our district, and is that number down from last year, or are we about the same?
We're down in the city overall about 1,500 officers from last year because of COVID's impact on our ability to test. So we couldn't have tests because of restrictions in a room. We couldn't have large academy classes for recruits because of restrictions. We had an outbreak of COVID at our police academy of new recruits. So we had to shut down our academy. And so that slowed down the pipeline of what normally would be assigned to the districts. The second district has 272 officers. Right now, we're planning to add 9 officers in August, another 9 officers in September, and another 10 in October. And then you will be at 300 officers in the second district with those additions over the next 3 months. But you currently have 272. The more immediate thing, as I mentioned, we need to fill up our TAC team so we can have the flexibility to be in the neighborhoods on foot and patrolling and making stops. So you can see our presence much more than you have.
So Superintendent, can I just ask you, really kind of going back to the previous question, but I think also responsive to this one, what other additional resources can the commander ask for from you, from patrol, to supplement the resources that are available in the district?
Right. So several times throughout the week, we are planning for the next week's officers' assignments called deployments. The commander requests additional officers, and we have officers that can move citywide to the second district. We have officers from the Bureau of Detectives that get in uniform and could go to the second district. We have officers from police headquarters that could go to the second district, and we have officers at our police academy that can go to the second district. That's based on the commander's request. Now, all the commanders are making requests, and we prioritize those requests, but there are additional resources that every district can get, and we do that deployment analysis every week. So based on not only today's meetings, but we interact with communities throughout the whole city to send resources. So there are additional resources above and beyond the 272 officers assigned to the district to the second district that can be sent to your neighborhoods for walking beats, for additional patrols, for additional traffic stops.
Yeah, well, that's good news. I'm glad to hear that. Just want to get on to some other questions.
Alderman, let me just add one.
Specifically,
Alderwoman, let me just add one more thing. Cassandra talked about the issue of cameras. If there is a need for cameras, and again, that would be a request that would come up through the district commander. We do have the ability to add more cameras on a temporary basis. We've done that in other areas of the city where we're seeing a flare up or a hotspot or a problem. We have the ability to add additional cameras, but we need to hear that from you, and we're hearing that now. And the district commander just simply needs to make a request, and we'll manage around that. But
yeah, and to the commander's credit, he's asked for about 10 cameras. They are on back order. We've been told that unfortunately, there's so many cameras that are being requested that we're just in line. So we have had those requests. We've added them to different areas, but that certainly is a tool.
what I will say is if there's immediate need, we can fill that need. We've done that in other areas of the city.
Well, good. Then
we just need the commander needs to make that ask and articulate the necessity and the urgency, because yes, every neighborhood wants more cameras. But where there's a priority, and I think that there is in this district, we have those resources available.
That's music to my ears. Just wanted to answer Ms. Britt Hart's question directly. We're down, about 90, 100 officers, but superintendent, are those 270 officers, are those all patrol officers?
Yes, they're of the 272, 243 are POs or FTOs, 22 are sergeants, and there's 6 lieutenants, and there's 1 captain. So that equals that's the 272. And I heard in the chat, does Commander Wallace get his request filled? Yes, he can get his request filled if he asks for all of these outside resources. We prioritize where we've had increase in carjackings. And as you noted, our data shows the second district has been a high priority for carjackings. And so we've prioritized the second district getting its request above others as it relates to specifically carjacking.
Okay. All right, let's try and get to a couple more questions. Muted myself. Ms. Spellers? So we're going to get down to one question. Okay, while Ms. Spellers is preparing, Ms. Edwards?
Hi.
You guys show your camera. Sorry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman King. I appreciate this forum, and thank you to Mayor Lightfoot and Superintendent Brown as well. My question had to do with, I guess it's along the lines of resources. And just to get back to the point about presence, the specific area that I am concerned with is along 43rd and Langley. There is significant narcotic activity. And this is something that isn't new. We've talked to the Alderman's office about it, and we did get cameras in that area. But I believe with the pandemic, the narcotics activity has gotten worse. And we're now seeing shootings to the point where we were just narrowly missed, just a few hundred feet away from our house, there's, an exchange of gunfire. So what can we get in terms of active police work to actually resolve some of these narcotic hotspots and, address the root causes of what turns into a flare-up of gun violence?
Great question, Commander.
Hey, Josh, can you just go through the narcotic question you made? And
Make sure the team is safe. Call and yell, call 911.
What up?
What do you mean with that?
I missed the box of Miss.
Can someone mute, please?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, great.
Sorry about that. Go ahead, Commander.
Superintendent, you made a comment. I didn't hear what your comment was.
Oh, the question was about narcotics in the
Right.
district. I just wanted you to update everyone on kind of the request you've made to narcotics to address concerns on some of the corners where you have illegal drug sales.
Absolutely. So the area in which you're speaking of, I'm very familiar with it. I make support unit requests to our narcotics division, and I know they have been working on specific, all incidents, all the areas that I get these concerns from. I put them in support requests, and I know that they're working on specific areas in my district to alleviate. The one thing, having been in narcotics, the one thing that's really important is to build a strong case. We don't want anyone to go in there and just, hey, there's that one, we verified they're selling narcotics, okay, we're done. But especially with everything that's going on in criminal justice, we want to make a dent because we don't want the problem to come back, because it's not something you should have to deal with on a daily basis. But in the meantime, our presence will make a difference over there as well with our support units in conjunction with our support units. So this is another issue where presence has to be made because, again, this is an area that I discuss with Alderman King often, and we have to do better. And I understand your concern, and we will definitely do better moving forward.
Alderwoman King, and I just throw this in? I have a hard stop in a few minutes here because I have another appointment that I've got to get to. So I just wanted to do a quick time check. I think we were scheduled to go to 5:30 and we're a little over that time, which is fine. But I just wanted to know that I won't be able to stay on the call much longer.
No, I initially had planned for about 5:30 and understand that you have to leave, Mayor. I would like to continue. We got started about 10 minutes late. We're about that time now, but there are several other people with calls. To the extent that the commander and other folks can stay on till 6, that's what I was going to do. Just try and get to a number of people, but certainly understand, Mayor, that you have a full schedule. So thank you. Appreciate you coming here truly and bringing your entire force with you. We appreciate that tremendously. So thank you.
Yeah, and let me just repeat something that I said at the beginning for those who may have joined. Number one, we appreciate this opportunity to come before you and hear you. And we will be responsive to your points. Appreciate all of the feedback and identification of problem areas in the district. What I've asked my team to do is to take all these notes and really do kind of a heat map of where we're seeing the challenges. We will share that obviously with the superintendent and Commander Wallace, but make sure that we are doing what we need to do to address not only obviously the carjackings and gun violence, but also the quality of life issues that many of you are involved. This is the small things that if we don't address them lead to larger challenges. And again, thank you for caring so much about your community, for being on this call, but also for giving us, I think, incredibly valuable feedback. We will talk to the Park District. We will make sure that we are working more with community organizations on the ground. I think there's some opportunities, Superintendent, for the community policing team and the CAPS team to really drill down there. Let me just also leave you with these 2 last thoughts, because a number of you have asked, what can we do to be part of the solution? On the policing side, I would say be present at your beat meetings. That's where a lot of valuable information is shared, and it's an opportunity for you to provide direct feedback to the commander and his leadership team about what you're seeing on the ground. That information does matter to us and gets factored into the deployments that the commander sends up to headquarters, and will be reflected when necessary if there's a need for additional resources. So please do try to take advantage of the beat meetings, participate in CAPS. We're going to put together a list for you, and you'll know them all, but we will put together a list for you of community-based organizations that are addressing a number of the challenges you've identified, whether it's connecting with youth, whether it's after school and out of time activities, mental health resources that are available, we will get that information and through the alderman provide it to you so that you then know what's actually happening, what are the resources that you may not be aware of that are available right there in your neighborhood, and the great work that your neighbors are also involved with. I don't think I've missed anything else, but again, really appreciate the time. I want to thank Anita for reaching out and really, particularly given the traumatic circumstances that she encountered, saying, I want to be part of the solution. I want to do what I can as somebody who loves the city, has lived in the city for 56 years, making sure that I can do what I can to activate my neighbors and really be helpful in addressing some of these longer systemic problems. I know many of you that are on this call, and I know you share that sentiment and that you've been doing great works for a long time in your neighborhood. So thank you all once again. I'll be leaving the conversation. My team will still be on, and I leave you in good hands of them, as well as the superintendent and Commander Wallace. Thank you, Alderman King, for convening this discussion.
Thank you, Mayor. Appreciate it. Sorry, next question, Mr. Humphreys.
Good evening. I just wanted to, in one of our PAC meetings, I'm Kahari Humphreys, and I am president of Ellis Park Advisory Council. And at our last meeting, it came up and it was suggested that we get a video camera installed both at Vincennes and 37th Street, as well as Langley and 37th Street. So just wanted to kind of say that, put that out there. Also hoping that business owners can try to host young people as employees, either through Run of Summer Chicago program or their own profits budgets, because that would definitely help in connecting with our young people. And then there's a resident-led safety initiative, Our Plan for Peace, in partnership with neighborhood groups, not-for-profit orgs, youth leaders, Park Advisory Council, Second District Police Department, 4th and 3rd Ward Alderman's Office, and many people on the Zoom, like Julie, Robin, Teresa, and Leonard, that we would love for folks that, there's many people that showed up tonight to be a part of this effort because they're planning activities in and around Bronzeville for the purpose of trying to promote safety and not positive loitering, but just positive placemaking. Also, similar partnerships resulted in the Bronzeville Block Club Summit held earlier this year in March, where over 90 residents and 30 block clubs were in attendance in this area. And so if you're not a part of a block club, you want to help start a block club, this is definitely an initiative we want you to be a part of. Working with youth serving organizations in the area and the group of organizations, including Ellis Park Advisory Council and Organic Oneness, we're initiating the My Shy, My Future model in an effort to get youth and teens in Bronzeville to connect to out of school time opportunities. So if you're interested in that. And then yesterday we hosted our quarterly PAC Advisory Council gatherings with 15 Park Advisory Councils participating along with 3 4th Ward Park and Arts chairs. And so there's stuff happening that we need you all to be a part of beyond these types of meetings. And so please, we want to increase your participation in collaborative efforts to improve our parks. Please get on a Park Advisory Council, get on a local school council, join the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council led by Pastor Harris. Your blocks and buildings have block clubs, neighborhood associations. If not, please start them. And then there are neighborhood ward advisory councils through the 4th Ward that need committee participation, committee chairs and participation, as well as the CAPS beat meetings and the DAC meeting. We have a 2nd District DAC Advisory Council meeting once a month on the first Wednesday of the month that we could really use folks to attend. Actually, we just had a meeting before at 4 o'clock today, because we've been meeting to plan the National Night Out that is next week from 2:30 to 7:30 in Mandrake Park for youth, for families, for residents. So please come out, meet other folks in your beat, support this effort in partnership with the police. I'll leave the link in the chat as well as my email if you want to be connected to it. Thanks.
No, thank you. There's definitely opportunities to get involved. So make sure that we do that. We will also put our email because there are advisory councils for every community area with safety chairs who are looking for people to be involved. So definitely we need to get involved. I know that Mr. Humphreys mentioned Pastor Harris, and I know he's got a question. Why don't you go ahead, Pastor Harris?
Sure. Thank you so much, and certainly to all of our political and law enforcement leaders. Thank you all for.
Please mute someone.
Thank you all for all that you all do and for everybody in the community who is a part of it. I had a couple questions here very quickly. Is anybody looking, Superintendent, at the data to see if all the police that you all tend to have downtown or other less violent communities, if those law enforcement officers are necessary in those places, or can they be redeployed into other Black and brown communities of need where these kinds of issues are? And I wish the mayor was still on, because you say you can't police your way, out of these things, and I agree with that. And so we have some data that talks about the fact that in the greater Bronzeville area, when you fund collaboratives with community-based organizations, then it helps the work that law enforcement does. And we need those voices to be raised. And I want to end with encouraging Commander Wallace, who I tend to work with, who in my opinion has been doing a fantastic job. You would almost think he's not requesting things. And I would suggest, Commander, let us know when you're requesting so we can all sit down, wait on those requests to be fulfilled. Because at the end of the day, you can't do it by yourself. But I know this is a very hard job for all of you all, but I want to encourage you all to keep doing what you're doing. But there's a lot of us that really do want to help. So I'd certainly like to know about that deployment, Superintendent, and how that whole thing works.
Yeah, so the downtown deployments, were something doing looting that we spun up from our citywide teams, and we had every district. And if you recall, I don't want to relitigate all this, but there was a big rush for looting downtown. Then there was looting in all of our neighborhoods. And so we shifted resources from downtown, and we split the baby some and had resources in our retail corridors in our neighborhoods and retail corridors downtown. As looting became less of a concern, although we're always thinking about looting, anything happening anywhere in the country can cause that risk factor to go up again. There are no resources taken from the districts to downtown. But your question was, can we take resources from downtown to the districts? And again,
other communities that are not that violent.
Right. So what's happened in 2021, different from 2020? 2020 was mostly localized violence from West Sides and some of the South Side neighborhoods. This year, it's spread throughout the city in areas where you would normally have violence. And I think that's what you're experiencing in Kenwood. You wouldn't normally have the level of violence that you are seeing in Kenwood now. That same thing is happening on the north side. The same thing is happening downtown. The actual downtown areas, the 1st and 18th district, are recovering more guns than they ever had in the history of Chicago. They're making more violent crime arrests. They're having more shootings. It's pervasive throughout the city. It's not as localized as it once was. And the problem is, again, I want to highlight, we're short 1,500 officers than when I took this job in April of 2020. 1,500 officers short, mainly because of COVID, but also people who are eligible to retire are retiring in bigger numbers than normal. And so we've got a little bit of a perfect storm, but we have a recruiting strategy and a retention strategy that we are implementing. And we just got our fingers crossed, and we need your prayers that we don't have another spike in COVID that gives the same impact in our police academy, because the police academy is the pipeline for more officers. And as we grow back to our capacity of an additional 1,500 officers that we are currently vacant, we won't have some of these concerns. But right now, we have a challenge of limited resources everywhere in the city. 1,500 officers short of what we were in 2020, in April of 2020, when I took the job. That's significant. That's not just downtown, that's everywhere in the city is short significant number of officers. And we can't use that as an excuse. We have to be more visible, we have to be more productive, and we have to be on foot in the areas where the community needs to see us more. So we're committed to doing that with the resources that we have. And we feel like we can still meet the challenge. Even with 1,500 officers short, we're still the second largest police department in the country. So we can meet this challenge. It's just gonna, again, it's gonna take us all working together.
I appreciate that, Superintendent. I'm encouraging, all of our leaders and folks in the community to, support our commander. A lot of times we have these great leaders that are in place, and these moments become very, very pivotal. And I'm certainly willing to either start, lead, or be a part of a petition where we make requests with our commander, because at the end of the day, he's just one person. But if we all make that request, we can all hold our superintendent and our mayor, who I believe all care about our community. We can hold them all accountable. But at the end of the day, we have seen great progress because of the leadership. And I can only imagine how much more we'll see if he had more resources. So thanks for that response, Superintendent.
Yeah, I would like to echo that. I think with the amount of resources our commander has, he's doing an excellent job. And so I'm so glad to hear that there are so many more, available and so readily. And I look forward to, those being deployed. And but let me get to a couple more folks. I said we'd end at 6. I want to try and get to Ms. Coates. I think you've been waiting patiently. Then Mr. Newsome.
Hold on. Hi there, sorry about that. Thank you so much for allowing me to be able to speak, and thank you so much for having for this forum. This is very personable for me, as I'm a longtime resident of 20 plus years in the Brownsville area. Used to live on Bowen, which we didn't have, or at least I didn't experience a lot of fear. However, being here on 43rd and Langley, where we've had a recent incident that has already been mentioned, a major shooting last week, right around my birthday, which has left my daughter and I pretty terrified at the moment. But I just wanted to just kind of add to the statement that the mayor said about where can we truly have more focus. And I know it's been stated 3 or 4 times already, but 43rd and Langley is a hot spot for not only speedsters, where we definitely need another stop sign, actually every block, because honestly, 43rd is almost becoming like 79th. It's really bizarre. You're having people driving down the street at 90 miles an hour. But in addition to that, we truly need other cameras outside of the cameras that are placed on the buildings that I don't believe are operable, especially the lighting. And I live in private property, so understand I'm really talking more from as a tenant versus a homeowner, but it affects all of us. We know that we have people that are in parking lots that are very dark and not well lit. And so I am just begging because I can't seem to get the support that I need. But as a resident living in this area that unfortunately I may have to leave very soon, of not feeling that I can't leave out of my apartment. It is extremely mentally crippling. And for me working for CPS, where I have to help people with COVID and things of that nature, I just really truly hope that this meeting ends up having more of an impact where we can actually really see the police presence a whole lot more. It does help every once in a while when they come through, but the gang activity and just not feeling comfortable leaving out of your home, it's just really, it's not a safe environment. So I just wanted to just echo that. I know everybody else has been saying that, but I thank you for allowing me to at least speak.
No, thank you, Ms. Coates. And yeah, we're definitely aware of that area, and sincerely apologize for the trauma that you and your family had to endure. I would say 43rd from, Langley, Evans, Champlain. There is a camera there at Champlain. But we can look at some of the things that you just suggested. And I know the commander also understands that that area is, there's some structural issues there that definitely need to be taken care of. So thank you for that, Ms. Coates. Mr. Newsom?
Thank you, Alderman. I think this is such a great forum, and I think your panel is I think it seems to be that we seem to have everybody except the governor. So it's no reason, and I think this should happen again and again until we see some improvement in crime. Like, my name is Charles Newsom. I'm the president of Kimbark Plaza, with a recent crime that was perpetrated. We've added more security, and one thing I like to say about security, these criminals don't even seem to care about security. You know, things like this used to happen in the alleys, in the dark spots of the city and places. They don't care anymore. They seem to even wear identifiable colors or something that they want to be seen. So it's just something that's, you know, the way the world is going today. But I think we have to keep the faith and look forward to the improvement of the things that we all talked about tonight. One thing I wanted to ask the commander, and all the collection of the guns and things like that, are those guns, is it possible to check those guns for ballistics in terms of whether they're used in previous crimes? I know you do a lot of things in your office that, you know, you can't always talk about, but that was just one of my questions. And what we wanted to do and have you also in trying to get in the inside or background of these criminals, perpetrators, in terms of have a conversation, what makes them do what they do? Why are they doing what they do? If you know, if you could get some kind of inside information, and is it because they don't have jobs, education, or they just want to be a criminal? If maybe have that kind of conversation, we know how to attack the problem. And that's, I just want to thank the panel and the aldermen for bringing forth this this forum tonight. I think it's great. Actually, I'm running late on my 6 o'clock board meeting on the Kimbark Plaza tonight, but I really appreciate what we're doing here. I think we can make progress if we all come together and work on the same accord. But again, I'll take the response, and I'll probably be leaving soon to get to my other meeting.
Mr. Newsom, Commander Wallace, I truly appreciate you being on here. All weapons that we recover are tested for ballistics matches and comparisons, and to help us find out whether or not they're related to other crimes that have occurred, not just necessarily in Chicago or the state of Illinois, but outside as well. So we go full tilt investigating those weapons that we recover. Also, in regards to talking to individuals, we do two things. At least I do two things. When I do foot patrol, I do foot patrol on our hot spots, and I talk to these guys. You know, before I tell them they have to beat the block, I talk to them and find out what the issues are and whatnot. And some of them are candid about what they're doing. Some of them not so much. But we also do custom notifications, as the superintendent alluded to earlier, which we talk to some of our individuals on our radar that are more than likely, you know, could possibly be victims of crime or possible offenders of crimes. And we talk to them and find out what's driving them to do what they do, and how can we help? You know, how can we partner with you and your family and help you get where you need to be and get out of this life, you know? And we get, you know, we get good responses. We don't always get the responses we want, but it is definitely eye-opening. And I know that more resources are needed for this community. And, you know, we truly need a true whole wraparound approach to embrace everybody, you know, and we're working on it though. But I appreciate your questions.
And Mr. Newsom, I appreciate you guys adding more security to Kimbark Plaza. You know, thank you for that, and thank you for your question. We're going to just take these last two gentlemen here, Mr. Davis and then Mr. McGee, and then we're going to end and talk about next steps. Mr. Davis, are you there?
Okay, in light of the law enforcement reform.
Mr. Davis, we've been, everybody video on.
You hear me?
I can hear you, just can't see you.
Okay, well, I gotta, this came from working out. In light of the law enforcement, the reform bill, which promotes training and which is very instrumental. And as people mentioned about the mental health, my question is, if a defendant has been identified with mental health issues, such as juveniles being non-medication compliance, and can the court mandate mental health services? That's my question, because that's the need, right? That's my opinion. That's the need, because these families are dealing with a lot of trauma, prior trauma, you know, from previous people in the family, people in the neighborhood. So if the courts can mandate that defendant or that juvenile, whoever, there might be some kind of success. So I just want to share that with you in terms of the mental health issue, because that is playing a factor. And in light of Pastor Harris, you know, he has programs for that as well. But again, I mean, we have to go on all areas, and I think mental health is one of the most. Thank you very much.
I agree. Does anybody know that answer?
I can just jump in and just say that they can, but non-compliance, again, no one wants to incarcerate young juveniles. They just don't. And you get a lot of non-compliance on some of the orders that judges in the juvenile courts render to young people, and you get oftentimes non-compliance or no compliance at all. And with you know, what's the backstop? The end game is, are we really going to incarcerate juveniles? And I think the answer more often than not is no, we're not. Even given all the non-compliance with mandated social services, mental health, drug treatment, et cetera, we often end up with keep trying to convince this young person and support the family until we get compliance.
Commander, did you want to add something? Or
I just wanted to say that during our custom notifications, when we do come in contact with the families and these youth, part of our wraparound services do include a mental health component, which is provided. And me being a strong proponent of ensuring that your mental health is top priority, I really push that when I have these conversations with the families. So again, I'm not always privy to who takes us up on the services, but it is definitely something that I push for these families, because I do understand the trauma that they face in these neighborhoods.
okay, thank you. And then Mr. McGee, and then I want Commander Marcellus from UCPD to also say a few words. Go ahead, Mr. McGee.
First of all, thank you, Alderman, Mayor, and all the police from the police department for the tenor of the conversation concerning the commander is very clear. The commander has been doing an excellent job and been very accessible. And I'd like to know how many requests has the commander put in and how many of those requests have been actually fulfilled. Because, I mean, I've dealt with the commander when he first came here. I knew him when he was a TAC person. I knew the person who was before him, and he came highly recommended, and he's done and lived up to that. But his hands are tied because he makes requests and they don't get filled. But in a meeting like this, he gets beat up because, you know, he's in the military system, so he can't say, well, listen, I did that, but they just didn't give me what they gave me. So I'd like to see what the stats are from the first of the year of requests that he's put in that have not been fulfilled. Also, we talked earlier about recruits coming in and recruits coming out. How many people are going to retire out of the 2nd district? And even if you do bring in the people you bring in, it's still not going to bring us up to style. And then the other question is the issue of reassignment that was talked about, I think, by Pastor Harris. Can you bring people in? In the new contract that was just signed by CPD with the city, did you get the rules changed where you can now do reassignments, because they'll go in and do a reunion grievance and that'll tie it up and it'll be on down the road? So where do we get some new teeth and out of the union contract so some of these people can be moved around. And then the point of bringing new recruits in some respects is not good for our neighborhood because some of the people are afraid of us as people being Black. That's not good for our neighborhood.
Can you, Mr. McGee, can you ask them one at a time and let the superintendent respond? Why don't you take your first priority first?
Okay, I actually put this in the
You sound
chat.
like us at a city council meeting asking him questions.
Well, I like to know from the first of the year, all the requests that have been put in by the commander for additional resources. What's the statistics on, and the police department's good on stats. How many of them have been fulfilled? How many of them have not been fulfilled? How many are still pending?
Okay, there you go, Superintendent.
So I'm going to answer this partially. I'd love to talk with you offline. There's other issues here related to productivity, to be quite frank with you, that we're not discussing because it's not the appropriate place. But I will say, when districts like the 2nd District request resources, there's enough resources that you get your request. That's not an issue. I know I've heard that you don't think he's getting the resources he's requesting. That's not been an issue. I can just talk to you offline about what the real issues are. We've got to get our traffic stops up. We've got to get our interactions with the community. We measure our positive community interactions. Every district is measured on all of these metrics for a 7-day period, for a 28-day period, and we have them for the year. And we have our challenges, and the commander's working on that. And he's as frustrated as I'm sounding with some of the productivity we're getting from officers. It is not a function of getting the resources. That's not the issue here. The issue is productivity, and we're working on it. We've got a plan in place. We've seen some immediate improvement, but we still have a long way to go. I would just say this overall. Productivity in policing across the country is down. Across the country is down. In Chicago, it's down like 40%. It was down close to 60, 70, 80% at different points last year. Productivity, it's what keeps us safe. To offenders believing they will be stopped, offend at a lesser rate. And there's a lot of reasons. The defund the police movement did something psychologically to cops. Last summer was very challenging. The overtime is exhausting. I mean, there's multiple layers. I mean, we've got in my opinion, officers who need officer wellness. They need more clinicians. They need more opportunities to have a relief factor in where they can take some time away from this job. It is the most challenging time to be a police officer in this country's history. There's not even another period. I've been doing this nearly 40 years. I don't even have a comparable period. The 80s and 90s didn't have these layers of challenges that we're experiencing now. And we're still not sure whether the pendulum swing for policing will end. I mean, if you look at other parts of the country, they did cut the budget. We didn't here, but other departments did. And now we're hearing other movements that related to changes in policing, reducing our staffing. So we don't even know where they end up. So that has an impact on officer productivity, what they're willing to risk, what they're willing to do. If they make too many traffic stops, they're racial profiling and over policing. If they make too few, crime goes up. So we're in a little bit of a trick bag.
Well,
and we need the community's guidance on how much policing in a constitutional way. I know we have COPA on it. All has to be constitutional. But we have to make those stops of offenders so that we can at least have an opportunity to hold them accountable in the criminal justice system.
Okay, I'll be more than happy to sit down and talk to you, but this ain't my first rodeo. Okay, and you need to talk to some of your people and they'll tell you who I am. This ain't the first rodeo, because I do know for a fact that for like Lollapalooza is coming up this weekend. How many people out of the 2nd District are going to be at Lollapalooza?
None.
How many?
We took.
How many are going to be out of the district?
None. If you let me answer, none. We're using headquarters staff. We're using police academy. We're using detectives. We're using counterterrorism, putting all those folks in uniform, and they are the footprint of Lollapalooza, which we kept the district folks
What about
in their
TAC?
district.
What
No,
about
we
TAC?
kept the
What
TAC,
about TAC?
we kept the TAC teams in their districts. Well, I'll be glad to talk with you offline about the order that we put out on this. This is a very public document. We intentionally are trying to keep the district personnel in their district for these type events, like Lollapalooza. We'll have Taste of Chicago, and then we'll have
Then
the
the
marathon.
other issue,
So we're intentionally not trying to pull the district personnel because of all the challenges you all have brought up.
okay, now the other thing is, when we look at retirements, how many retirements are going to be out of the second district by the end of the year? Because generally the police department knows a year in advance who's going to retire. And even if you add in the new officers coming in, and how would the net loss be in our district?
So currently, I don't have that information. I have it for the city. So we have another 150 pending retirements. We do have over 400 applications for the job being processed, with the plan to have 2 more in-person tests and 2 more online tests this year. So we're ramping up for the first time a dedicated recruiting team that will focus on city colleges and university, as well as military bases and job fairs. But again, the challenge is still, pretty prevalent. We're all competing for the same resources across the country. Not as many young people want to be cops as had want to be cops in the past. So we got our work cut out for us, but we've got a plan in place. I can get you of the 150 pending retirements, which ones are from the second district. I can definitely get that to you.
You know what, Alderman,
So
I'm taking up too much time. You know what?
Yeah,
I'm taking up too much time. I yield. I'd love to sit down and have a conversation
let's do it.
with the superintendent. It was supposed to happen some time ago. It didn't happen. Alderman King, thank you. Thank you to everyone who's talked. Thank you for everyone who's wants to get involved and hasn't get involved. But the key thing is everybody has to care, and you've got to also share what's going on with your neighbor other than the people on this line. And I stop.
thank you, Mr. McGee, and thank you, Superintendent. I know you also have to get going. I truly appreciate your time and the time of your staff. While you're exiting, I want to allow the UCPD commander to say a few words, and then we'll wrap this up.
Thank you, Alderwoman King. I just wanted to say thank you for having me on this meeting tonight. I appreciated hearing some of the community concerns. We obviously are aware of the increased violent crime in Kenwood. We've also deployed additional resources to that area. As to, I think it was Ms. Dickens' car. We actually have additional units specifically assigned to the some of the areas that were referenced tonight. So we have made arrangements. We meet with the second district on a weekly basis to go over crime data. We also have a monthly robbery reduction plan that is looked at every month, and we allocate resources depending on where we're seeing the crime data. So I also, we patrol up to 37th Street.
Yep.
So if somebody needs the police, UCPD is always here. Depending on where the area is, UCPD is the primary, but we're definitely there in support and can respond to any type of calls for service. So again, thank you.
Well, thank you. And I just want to note, that they do patrol all the way up to 37th Street. I think your western border is Cottage, though. And can you just give everybody your phone number, and then we'll put it in the chat as well, so people understand that resource. But they go all the way up to 37th Street, and their western border is Cottage there, just for people's edification. But thank you, Commander.
Thank you so much, and I'll add that in the chat right now.
Thank you so
I have
much.
one question for the Commander, University of Police. What is the protocol? I mean, can we call the UFC police first before we should call the Chicago police? Or
Absolutely.
we call the Chicago police and then UFC?
If you need the police, you can call University of Chicago Police. Like I said, we probably will get there quicker just because we have officers in a smaller area. Our area of patrol is smaller than CPD. So we're definitely there in support of them. So you can certainly call UCPD and, you know, we can help you and take care of anything. If it's something that UCPD or that CPD has to take the primary on, you know, then you can call them, you know, after we respond to the scene, or we can actually help you with that transfer of information.
Thank you.
You're very
No,
welcome.
thank you for that, Commander. Again, you know, I just want to thank everybody on this call tonight. This is definitely all hands on deck. I want to reiterate that, you know, the police cannot do this by themselves. However, I do think more resources are needed, and I've heard that more resources will be given. And so we'll hold those words accountable here. I also have heard many people say, and I will repeat, there are a number of ways for us to get involved as community people. Every community area has an advisory council. Each of those advisory councils have safety chairs and safety committees. Each of those advisory councils have block clubs. Get involved in your block. It's as simple as really just starting a block club group on your particular block. You know, if you don't have one on your block, then start one. That's how communication flows. That's how, you know, we let our neighbors know what's happening, and then it flows out from your block to the community. And that's what we're attempting to do to help provide safety. And so there's also other organizations out there as well. We definitely want to deal with the long-term issues of our youth. And so, you know, co-curricular, after-school programs, youth programs associated with churches, with other organizations, those get involved in those as well. And so I really appreciate everybody. How we're going to kind of proceed from here is through those local levels, through the community levels, through, you know, your advisory councils. We will kind of try and formulate and grow those groups and talk about some of these initiatives, and also, you know, again, hold our police accountable for a number of the issues that we've brought up today, to, you know, see how things are from a month from now, 2 months, 6 months from now. And, you know, I hope that everybody, not everybody has the opportunity to get involved, but, you know, a lot of people do. So just everybody, I think, take a step forward in making your community safer by helping out in some way. It may be, you know, going to a CAPS meeting, or it may be attending one of these advisory councils. But, you know, we need to take our communities back. And I think that we all can do that. I feel the energy here tonight, and just want to thank you all for taking time out, you know, over 2 hours this evening, but this is important. So we will follow up. We will also post this on our website. So if you know people who haven't or weren't able to attend tonight, you can let them know that it will be posted on our website. But again, thank you to all the stakeholders in our community, and especially to the residents of the community. Thanks very much, and have a good evening. Have a safe evening. Take care.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Superintendent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commander.
Commander,
Thanks,
thank you very much. You stay on the wall. Stay on the wall, Commander. Our community is supporting you. Stay on the wall.